Hey guys.
Hola, hola, everyone. Hola, hola. We don't have quorum, Miss Caminer.
Not yet.
Not yet. Just let us know.
I will.
Ay, Dios.
I love your background, OC.
Thank you.
The Northern Lights, very cool.
Thank you. I wish I could see it in person.
I almost did because I worked in Sweden one summer, but I would have had to go like on this ridiculous trip to the north.
North Cap?
Yeah, somewhere, but that
I've been there. It's nice. It's really nice. We need 3 more people for quorum.
You said 3, right?
3 more for quorum.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. 2 more. All right, we have quorum.
Wayne, are you at Martha's Vineyard?
Yes, I am.
I recognize those houses anywhere.
Thanks both. What can you say about those houses? I don't recognize them.
You gotta know, Richard. You gotta know.
I hear that. I'm just not there yet.
Okay, Jose, whenever you're ready.
No, we do have a quorum if you want to start.
Great. Start. We can hopefully take the next hour and a half from our busy lives and do some of the great things that we do off of these meetings. I'm going to call the meeting to order. It's 6:35. Guys, thank you so much for being here tonight. It's been a hell of a week. As we start the economy and things start getting back to somewhat normal, I think that we all are working as hard as we have. Those of us that have that are working not from home understand how things are speeding up, tremendously faster than what we think. So my report is going to be very brief, and it's going to be mainly to congratulate what I've seen happen in the past month or so, which is the interability of different committees to collaborate and work together. I am extremely proud of what uh, Wayne and Faye have been doing for the past month. I've seen Francisco working with in his new role with other committees, Ariel and Liz. So and Domingo when he was here, and Curtis. So um, I think that's what collaboration really means, and I think that we're making taking steps, to progress. Progress in which we're not silos of one another, that we can actually work and yes, have independent thinking, but yet when it comes to the ultimate goal of doing what's best for our community, that we can put our minds together and move the needle towards progress. So that's my report for tonight. I'm going to now allow our district manager, Benicia Smith, to give his report for the next 5 minutes.
Eleazar,
Yes, sir.
before you go, I asked a question a couple times via email in the last few days, and I never got a response. The land use reso, which is on the agenda, has to be voted on by the executive committee because the LPC public hearing is the same, date. I'm just wondering why it's the last item on the agenda, because sometimes by the end of the committee meeting, we lose quorum.
We can change that. It's not a problem.
I also have a question about, we said we were going to approve the agenda, and we didn't do that again today, because I did have something I wanted to add to the committee reports. I noticed that we have the committees, and then I was just concerned with the task forces, and that we had a discussion last month about task forces being added, being a report being given. And I know I see the IT one is there and the LGBTQ one, but I don't see the inward rezoning, that means our inward rezoning task force and the bylaws task force on that list to give a report.
The inward rezoning is already being assigned by the Manhattan Borough President's Office, who are ultimately the entity that is going to handle.
No, we voted on an inward rezoning task
even if we
force.
voted on, let me explain, even if we voted on, Gail's office decided to handle the task force themselves and assign people that they feel can contribute to the task force. It's our out of purview.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, if there's something like that happen, I think it's just important that the board knows, because we voted on formulating a task force, and I don't remember hearing anything about that's going to be taken over from an elected official.
Well, that was discussed
because I wouldn't agree with that,
Yeah, well, yeah, I understand, but that was discussed and talked about a few months ago, and I think our colleague Natalie Espino talked about it and discussed it, and we
where did she discuss it?
One of our meetings. So I think it was a general meeting.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I don't remember that.
Can I interject for a second, please? I hate to interrupt.
Of course you can.
The inward rezoning task force was never a community board task force. It was an EDC task force. And the thing that got that delayed was the litigation. And what our position was all along is we did not need to wait for the EDC task force, because each and every committee could look at the city commitments, identify those that were under their purview, and ask the pertinent agencies what they're doing. And I know that Health and Environment's doing this, Parks and Culture is doing this, and Land Use has reached out. So it sounds like the borough president's office has taken over the EDC role, but it was, as I said, it was never a CB12 task force.
Yeah, this point of clarification. Thank you, Wayne.
All right, thank you.
The point of clarification that I'm asking here is because we voted, and again, it might be something that OC may need to look up, but we voted on, there was a task force that had been formed, and then we voted to abolish that and then start over because we had not voted on that task force. So I guess what I'm confused about is what happened. I just need clarification in terms of what did we vote on when we voted on the forming. That's what because we vote. No, what did we vote? We voted on that. I remember sitting there and we voted on the Inward Rezoning Task Force. And so my question is, what happened? That wasn't any.
Yeah. I think Wayne just explained it. Liz, if you want to give it an answer before we move on to Ebenezer's report. Liz?
No, but I also had a question about adding the bylaws task force too. So my question, but we can start with the inward rezoning. If someone could clear up that, because I'm just really confused. I don't even know, and I'm legitimately just confused. I'm not,
okay.
just throwing this out there. I don't know what happened. I thought we voted on something, and then all of a sudden it's not that, and I don't remember anything officially, being said. So
before you, Wayne, you give it another shot, Liz.
So I have two things, one which is related to this and one which is not. We did, Tanya is absolutely right. We did vote to convene a task force, and it sounds like I too was confused until I got Wayne's explanation, which now makes a little more sense. So it sounds like it would just be helpful if we could clarify for the record that we had voted to have a task force. Whether there's a task force or not, committees always have a role to represent their interests and to talk to their constituent agencies about the pieces that relate to their committee. And it sounds like the borough president, in her capacity of her charter mandate to deal with land use issues, is dealing with that rezoning issue through her office. And there really isn't a need for us to be duplicative. But I agree with Tanya that it would make sense to just state that clearly for the record, so that if anybody else like Tanya or me are confused about what happened, we can have a clear timeline of what happened. And before I yield my time, I just want to say that, like Wayne, I too have a resolution from my committee that I need the executive committee to vote on, because the deadline for the comment period to the Parks Department is tomorrow. So I need for the executive committee to vote on the resolution.
So why was it not sent to the office prior to tonight's meeting?
I just sent it. I had sent you an email earlier today that I needed to have that on the agenda.
Good enough.
I just sent the text of the reso.
Good enough. Ozzy, when you wrap it up, and then we'll move on to Ebenezer.
I think that we should ask the Manhattan Borough President to give us an update to the executive committee, either through Natalie, or if she wants to present it, or give us an update on a monthly basis about the task force, so we know where we are and we know what's going on. I believe that will be really helpful, and so we will have less confusions. Thank you.
So they're committed to doing so. Wayne, wrap it up so we can.
No, I was going to agree with Tanya that, we have the other task force, before this on the agenda. So if there's a bylaws task force, they should just be, as a standing item on the agenda. And if whomever's chairing that has nothing to say, they have nothing to say. And if we have questions for them, something we want them to pursue, we can pose it to them. So it should just, be on the agenda the way we have all the other committees. And, with regard to the task force, there's no reason why, going back to, what Liz and Tanya said, if the borough president has now convened the task, I'm a little more comfortable with the borough president convening the EDC. There's no reason why the borough president can't invite CB12 to participate on that task force. So maybe you can find out from Ebenezer or Eli, if you can find out from the borough president's office how we can participate on that task force.
Understood. Thank you. We'll follow up. Ebenezer, your report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, everyone. Always, it's a pleasure being here as your district manager and report. You notice that this month, your committee meeting happens in Zoom. All the committees meeting happen in Zoom, and the reason is because we have a new Zoom account for Community Board 12 that we purchased the license the end of last month. And because that, we have two Zoom accounts, and we are enjoying it because, the majority of board members doesn't like the other streaming account that we had sponsored by by City Hall. Now, this afternoon, I got a notification from the Manhattan Borough President's Office inviting all district managers and community board chairs to participate in a meeting on Wednesday to discuss the Zoom account sponsored by the Manhattan Borough President's Office. The Zoom account is sponsored by the Manhattan Borough President's Office will expire this Friday, March 19. And like I made the announcement last month, the Manhattan Borough President's Office is being asking community boards to pay for their own account. Really, I don't know how the details going to happen. Chances are that we probably will have to purchase another account or use the account that nobody like, sponsored by the mayor's office. So I will keep you posted on this issue by the general meeting to see how the outcomes will be. If we need to purchase a second license with Zoom, probably we can afford back and forth. The amount is not that much per year. It will be a total of $1,000 something for the two accounts per year. So let's see what happens. I will keep you posted. Now, I want to remind everyone of our YouTube account and our Facebook account. All the meetings that we have, committee meetings, the general meeting, the executive committee meetings, is being recorded and kept in our YouTube account, and people can go back there and review it. As you know, our email from the office, it has the links at the bottom of our name, so people can go there. And I encourage you to help us to promote this account so the public can go and retrieve any meeting they want. There are some meetings that they are not immediately in the YouTube account, because when we have two meetings, one meeting has to be streamed on the YouTube account, and the other meeting is streamed via Facebook account and recorded there, and they need to be transferred to the YouTube files. And sometimes it doesn't happen immediately. It takes a little bit to do, but we try to keep it up to date, and all the meetings are there. So please help us to promote with the community these two channels that we have with our meetings. Thank you very much. This is the end of my report. I see two questions, one from Liz Reader and one from Ozzy. Let's see what it is.
Yeah, your report's clear. My question actually relates to the previous matter. I just want to have clarity. We had a lot of discussion about the agenda, but we didn't actually vote on the agenda. So could we just be all parliamentary, whatever, and actually vote to approve the agenda? I think Jim would agree that that would make for a more orderly meeting. And if I understand it correctly, the additions to the agenda would be to add the Inwood Rezoning Task Force, which I think is going to have a 30-second report that has been bumped over to the borough president, to add a report of the Bylaws Task Force, which may or may not even have a report, and to move land use and parks up to earlier in the agenda, so that we just make sure that we have quorum to pass those two resolutions through the executive committee. Were there any other changes that people had?
Eli, you're mute.
Eleazar, you're muted.
Yeah. So we're going to make a motion on the floor to adopt tonight's agenda.
With those four
As amended.
changes.
As amended.
Okay, so yes, so that is my motion to adopt it as amended.
Second,
Thank you, Liz.
I'm sorry, who's second?
Tanya.
Rosie is not in? Okay.
Is there any
Okay, it's
objection?
Can you get any, is there anybody objects? No? Anyone abstains? Agenda approved.
Bravo.
Great. So, Ozzy, your report is next.
Okay. Actually, I had two questions to Ebenezer before I continue, so I'll do it together. Ebenezer, if we can get going forward, if we can get reports from your district managers meetings at the Manhattan Borough President office, this is one thing. The other thing about the licensing documents, a few months ago, we agreed that we're gonna send the entire board the documents that are pre-meetings documents for the licensing committee. It was only sent once and never after that. So I wonder why it wasn't sent, and if you can start, sending it again on a regular basis.
I understood that last week we sent it, the documents for the licensing committee before, because I personally asked Chanel to do that. And regarding my district service cabinet meeting report, I cannot report to you today because my report, my district service cabinet meeting going to happen this coming Thursday. Definitely, if is there anything important to report, I do that every general meeting. I do
Exactly.
search for my report and any other important thing. But today I cannot give you any other thing. And with regarding the borough service cabinet meeting, I cannot report to you on that one either because it happens the fourth Friday of the month, and most of the time the general meeting already passed. If there is anything important, I bring it to this meeting as well.
Okay. All right. In terms of my report, I have we have a few members that I believe should get a letter that some of them were not there, not present at the meetings. Glennis Okino Gill was not present for 7 meetings in 2020. Neisha Diaz was not present at 9 meetings total. Ashley Fernandez wasn't present at 8 meetings. Miriam James wasn't present at 18 meetings. And Cindy Mathis and Jay Mazer weren't present for 10 meetings each. Told me this is only 2020, not including January 21 and on. So Eli, do you want to do what you did last time? You actually started with a phone call to those members,
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
if that will not, okay. So
Send Paola an updated list of what you just reported, and we'll make the phone calls, and then we'll move on to the letters, and then we'll make recommendations to the MBPL for whatever actions they deem to be necessary.
okay, the only thing is that it's March, and I think by next month, the borough president is probably going to make decision about who is in, who is out. And if those member want to resign, then they'll have to do it sooner rather than later. So I think that it will be best if I send the office, including you, the list of those 5 members. And if you can call them like right away, and then they need to, which I want to add to it, that I want to ask that all the chairs advise their members that if any of them would like to resign, they have to send an email to the borough president, not just to the chair of the committee,
Correct.
or not just to Ebenezer. It has to go to the borough president, not through me. I need to know who is present or absent or whatever, but the resignation must be sent to the borough president. That's what I have. That's what I have for today. Oh, one other thing I want to mention, and maybe Jim, maybe you can chime in on this. Liz, I saw your hand. Give me a second. So in terms of presence at the general meeting, I count people that are present if they're voting. If a person didn't vote, that means that it wasn't there. If
I
a
think
person,
that's too extreme. I think
Hold-
if they show up at all, they're present, and if they vote, they vote.
what
I
if,
think that's about the best we can do.
but
Um,
but the passing or not passing of resolutions depend on how many members voted, right? So actually there would be a tally of the number of people that voted, which I usually mark at the bottom, and then you're going to be the tally of members that were present at the meeting but not voting. So
no,
if
no,
they're
no,
not
no, no,
voting,
no,
I
no, no,
normally
no,
put
no,
them
no,
as
no.
like
Stop,
left
stop,
early.
stop, stop, stop. Basically, you call the roll. As you call the roll for the voting, okay, you know exactly who is at the meeting. Oh, I see what you're talking about. Okay, now, there are basically two different versions of the attendance, okay? When you do the voting, it's the attendance at the time of the voting, and that's because everybody has to vote, okay?
Mhm.
However, that's too strict for attendance in terms of throwing people out and stuff. So in general, let's say you were there at 90% of the meeting and then you had to go home or whatever, or whatever, you would still be present at the meeting, but you didn't vote. So I think that's the distinction. Okay.
That's what I said. I said,
Well,
what
I
I said,
apologize then for telling you what you said.
no, maybe I did not explain that correctly. What I'm doing is that if a member left early and did not vote, then I marked it as left early. Like the member was present, left early. That's why there is no
Okay, but
voting
you
from that
see
member.
when you look at the bylaws, okay,
Okay.
in terms of being present at meetings, the people who left early count as being present at the meeting, even though they didn't vote.
Yeah, no,
So we're all on the same, we're on the same wavelength.
okay.
Okay. So
All right.
are you guys clear, or the both of you?
We are clear on this. And one last thing. I'm asking for the purpose of the minutes that if you give the access to the meeting from you, if you're forwarding your email to somebody to give access to the meeting, can you please advise that person to just state that he or she is there? Because Eli, I think you gave access to Yidanis in January, and I couldn't mark him as present at the general meeting because it looked like him, but I wasn't sure, so I didn't mark him as present. This is all for purpose of the meeting, for the minutes, that if you give access, just make sure that person is, just say, hey, my name is so-and-so, and I'm here.
Yeah.
Or put it in a Q&A or something. That's all.
All right.
Now Lisa
Right.
had a question.
The same way as Mark Levine and all the other elected officials, it's the same procedure. I think that once they come online or they come to have their turn to speak, it's the same procedure. There's no difference. There's one question before we move on to.
Well, if I could just comment on that, it's nice that they're there, but in terms of the operation of our board, whether they're there or not is irrelevant. So that, but whether one of our board members is there or not, that's a whole different story, because if you aren't there, you might not stay on the board very long. So I want to make that distinction. Thank you.
Great enough. One more question before we move on to.
Yeah, so what I wanted to both say and ask is that our bylaws have a clear process for communicating with members around attendance, and there are timeframes within that. So while I 100% agree that reaching out personally with a phone call is always a really good thing to do in addition, I would also encourage the letters just notifying people in writing of their attendance issues is appropriate, and that it should go out sooner rather than later, because they are given 30 days to respond. So if we wait for a couple of weeks before the letter goes out, that 30-day time clock, that's 2 more weeks that we have to wait. So it winds up being a 6-week period. So I would strongly encourage the letters to go out this week, and also phone calls to happen this week.
Right. Thank
I
you.
also want to clarify that
Yeah,
while,
we'll,
of course, the borough president can remove people for cause, we are empowered not only by our bylaws, but also by the city charter to remove people for cause as we define it. And we've defined attendance as being one of the causes. So while it's true that the borough president could remove people, we have a process also for removing people. We don't have to say to the borough president, we would like you to remove these people because their attendance is poor. We have the ability under the city charter to remove people for poor attendance as we have defined it. Thank you.
all right. So we're going to review our meetings, our calendars. We're going to start looking at May. Guys, if you want to take a quick look at the May's calendar and you see if there's anything that you would like to change, the times, the dates, anything, any conflicts before we approve it.
Do we want to start with April?
Actually,
before we go to May?
April, sorry, April. Thank you, Wayne. April. We just had the wrong calendar in front of me. Anybody? We all good? Nice. Quick enough. For the month of May 2021, are there any conflicts? Anyone that would like to make any changes? Richard, how are you? Anyone? Any changes? No? Good. For the month of June 2021, there's if you guys take a look at the month of June, the dates, the 21st and the 22nd.
Yeah, that doesn't look good.
Doesn't look good, but our bylaws requires those dates to be the dates. So I propose that we move our executive meeting to the
Tuesday
15th,
the 15th, yeah.
Tuesday the 15th, and then we can, are we all in agreement?
Yeah, may I make a suggestion? This happens pretty much every time a month begins on a Tuesday.
On a Tuesday.
So whenever we have a meeting, a month where the first of the month is a Tuesday, the third Monday is going to be the day before the fourth Tuesday. So of course it makes sense to change it in this way for June. I would respectfully suggest that going forward, we just always make this change for months that start on a Tuesday. And that, I mean, because we've had this conversation before and we always say, oh no, this is terrible. We should change the executive committee to the third Tuesday. And we all go, yep, we should do that. So we've been here before. Why don't we just institutionalize it as the regular thing that we do?
So the wording would be something like if the executive meeting falls on consecutive days with the general meeting, and it's the first day of the month is a Tuesday, then we should just use the third Tuesday.
If the month begins on a Tuesday
Tuesday.
such that the third Monday is immediately prior to the fourth Tuesday, the executive committee meeting should be on the third Tuesday.
First Tuesday. All right, got it. So we're gonna go back to our minutes and then just write something off of it so that we get the right wording
So it's gonna be on the 15th?
Correct.
on the 15th.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, do we need to vote on this?
Not really.
Not really, that we have a consensus.
Mhm.
I mean, does anybody object?
Fairly easy. All right. So that's that. So we have all our future meetings knocked down. So we're gonna have our resolutions first, and then we're gonna do our reports. I'm gonna flip-flop them a little so that I can keep it like the same consistency that we've had. So Wayne, you want to make the presentation on the Landmark Preservation Commission for Hollywood? I speak of
Holyrood,
this
yeah.
Holyrood.
Right, so thank you, Eliezer. This is actually a designation or proposed designation that we knew was coming. A few months ago, we discussed the National Register listing of the Fort Washington Public Library and Holyrood Church. And we understood that LPC was also looking at New York City designation of Holyrood Church. So in January of this year, they calendared the church for consideration, and the public hearing will be held this month on the 23rd at 9:30, which is why the executive committee needs to vote on it, because the 23rd in the early evening is when our general meeting will occur, and that will be after the LPC public hearing. And this is one of the first designations where we're looking at where LPC is looking not only at the architectural merit, and this is a beautiful building, a wonderful example of Gothic revival, and is very much intact, but also the cultural and community connections. And while LPC discusses Holyrood's connection to the Puerto Rican, Dominican, and other Spanish-speaking community for the last 40 years, when you research this, you realize that Holyrood's been connected to the community going back to the beginning of the century. So it's something that we in the Land Use Committee, enthusiastically, support, and you can read the resolution for more detail. But it's something that designations like this is absolutely something that we think LPC should be looking at, and we also think that in the instance where you don't happen to have a building that is as architecturally magnificent as Holyrood, but has similar, cultural connections, and going back to the 1963-65 preservation law, it does recognize architectural, historical, and cultural. So you don't have to just be of architectural merit. We think it's worthwhile for LPC to also give much more consideration to cultural and historic merit. And this happens to be one designation where the two come together. Questions?
Would it be appropriate to add that it also has really amazing acoustics and it's a delight to sing in that church? Or is that
we did talk about the choir. We did talk about Liz Ritter being, I think, a current or former member. Yes.
Wayne, I didn't see anything about when they were they received that
sanctuary?
the lady sanctuary, the lady that
it is absolutely in there. It is absolutely in there.
Yeah, it also belongs to New Sanctuary Coalition.
Exactly.
That works.
yes. I got it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
I would just suggest changing "and provided refuge." She's no longer there. I think they may have other people in sanctuary.
They do.
Amanda is no longer. That's
Yeah.
So if anyone has a Steve Simon, and please feel free to send it.
yeah. The role of Steve Simon will be played by Elizabeth Ritter.
Yes, because we went through that already. And there is a just for reference, Ebenezer and Eleazar, there is a website to which the written comments are to be sent, but there will also be virtual participation. So I don't know if Ebenezer will be sending it and also attending the virtual public meeting, but we did need to definitely make sure the resolution is finalized in a timely manner and sent to that website before the 23rd.
Okay. Yes. So it should be out tomorrow, the latest, and then we can, for the sake of time, ratify it during the general meeting.
Yes.
So that we can speed it up. Okay.
We actually need to vote on it though.
Yeah, we are going to vote on it. Ozzy, let's just vote on it. Let's take the tally and let's just move forward.
Here's the problem. I can't find the the executive committee attendance sheet, so I need a minute.
Sure.
Can we continue on and then vote on this in a few minutes?
Sure.
You,
We could vote on, can't we just vote on both of them together?
Yeah,
Catherine has her hand up.
Yeah, I was gonna say if Wayne, if you had an additional report, we could do that now too.
sure, actually. So we talked about the Holy Rood Church. We also had, and this is one of those things where we just had to do it because it's required. The existing, one of the existing Audubon Research and Development Campus buildings, Lasker, there is a tenant that is adding an air conditioning unit to the roof. It's not a big air conditioning unit. It's kind of the size of one of the air conditioning units you would have for a private house. But because the building is city owned and leased to Columbia, the Public Design Commission must review and comment on any change, which meant the Land Use Committee had to discuss the addition of an air conditioning unit to a roof that already has multiple huge air conditioning units. So there will be a resolution coming to the to the general meeting. It's not something that's time sensitive that has to be acted on by the exec committee. Basically saying there was a presentation on the proposed addition of an AC unit to the roof of the building. It's non-controversial. You cannot see it from the street, and we have basically no objection and no comments to add. What else did we talk about? We had a good conversation on the church. It was really something where the representatives are actually very proud. There's some people who are resistant to designation, but the representatives were very proud of the recognition of their church and the designation of their church. And they also were very grateful that the community board reached out and wanted to make sure that they were comfortable, with the designation. So we had that discussion. We also shared, initially my comments, and then there were some additional comments generated by the committee on the presentation that was made on February 18th on the Eliza Affordable Housing Project. And we forwarded those to Ebenezer and asked him to share that with HPD and the development team and for them to get back to us with written responses. And we're waiting for those written responses. But during the February 18th meeting that I moderated at Eleazar's request, and it was a meeting that was not a CB12 meeting per se, but it was something we were asked to host. There were lots of questions about not necessarily the affordability per se, but the unit distribution. There are a terrible amount of studios and one bedrooms. And why is that? And what can be done to massage that a bit? And within the distribution of units, while nothing is more expensive in terms of AMI than 60% AMI, you have something like half of the units at the upper tier of affordability. And the thought is maybe it should be a bit more balanced. And in terms of design, while the architect actually includes in the design presentation a couple of photos of existing Inwood buildings, and they speak to the Art Deco buildings as an archetype, the design of the building has nothing to do with Art Deco or the Inwood, the sort of the feel and the flavor of it. And the question is, if you're going to use that as a reference, if you're going to use that as an archetype, what can you do to sort of modify your facade so it's not a gray brick building, which is exactly what it is, right now. So Ebenezer, if you could, push HPD to get us back, written responses, that would be great.
We're going to continue on, and we have the backing of our good friend Yvonne Stennett, who's going to be involved in this project also.
Well, yes, that's true. But when you look at how HPD handled the presentation, and based upon some discussions, It's not clear to what extent HPD actually coordinated with Cloth on the presentation. And it's not at all clear to what extent they referred back to any comments that were provided, a year or more ago to prepare for the February 18th meeting, because quite frankly, a lot of the questions that were asked by myself and, by other board members were asked a year and a half ago. So it's almost as if, they didn't look at that and they weren't prepared to say, this is what we did in response to what you said a year and a half ago.
Yeah, because the presentation assist came as pretty much an ask from Yvonne, but then she got sick, and her not being present during the meeting, and she was the lead person while the preliminary discussions, because the rest of the staff is fairly new, as you know, so they weren't really had all, they didn't have 100% handle of the details and the discussion. But now that she's back and she's healthy, she's going to take a leadership in the discussion. So
but my point is, we took the time to reduce the questions to writing. They were in fact sent to HPD. I was copied on that email, so we need them to respond.
All righty. Okay, so Ozzy, let's move on and let's get the voting on.
Do you want to do the roll call now or
Yes,
after
let's do it
Liz is
now.
doing the
Well,
PCA?
since I also have a resolution, doesn't it make sense to just do one roll call for the two resos?
Who has a copy of Liz's?
I can screen share if you give me that
We,
capacity.
who does not have it? Because I don't know that we're gonna vote on something.
I don't have it.
We have to vote on it because it's.
But we can't vote on something that we haven't read, can we?
I
Share the screen.
I understand that. If you allow me to screen share, then everyone will have it. I also am happy to explain a little bit about it. It's, I think, pretty non-controversial, but the deadline for the comment period from the Parks Department, the Parks Department's deadline for the comment period is tomorrow. So, and they actually, it was supposed to be last week, but knowing that we had this meeting this evening, they extended the deadline to tomorrow so as to be able to accommodate our input. So I'd like to be able to get this to them. May I share screen? Can you see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, is this what I'm scrolling up? Is it scrolling up?
Yeah, we
No.
could see it.
Okay, right, but I'm,
Yes, it's scrolling.
okay, so I just want to scroll to the top. So I can tell you what this is, as you know, in the Parks and Cultural Affairs Committee, we've been having an ongoing conversation since the fall around renamings and co-namings and new namings of various parks and portions of parks. As a backdrop to that, the Parks Department also had an initiative for naming parks throughout the city, in the wake of the civil rights reckoning and issues of institutional racism that were sparked by, among other things, the murder of George Floyd. The Parks Department has really been looking at the extent to which African Americans are grossly underrepresented in the names of parks. So they had a number of parks namings last November, 2 in each borough, and then they opened up another round of suggestions for parks throughout the city to be named. And the deadline, as I said, for that is tomorrow. So we kind of put a hold on the larger conversation around Bennett Park and some of the other names and other parks, and focused specifically on parks that could be named after prominent African Americans from this community. And what we came up with was to name the, we originally looked at the triangle outside of Obi's home, but that's already named after Juan Pablo Duarte. So we thought of the lawn in Highbridge Park just south of the Highbridge Rec Center to be named after Obi. To name the rec center itself after Constance Baker Motley, who was a tremendous leader. She was an African-American attorney, and she lived on Edgecombe Avenue at 409 Edgecombe Avenue for many years, and a prominent attorney, very important person in the civil rights legislation and court cases, including Brown v. Board of Education. She was a former New York State Senator and Manhattan Borough President. The third proposed co-naming is for a section of Highbridge Park between the two playgrounds, just on the back side, across the street from the Morris Jamel Mansion, to be named after Larry Neal, a playwright, author, poet, and educator who lived on 160th Street until he died in 1981, and his wife still lives there, his widow still lives there. And the fourth is after Jean-Michel Basquiat, who, although he was not a resident of Community Board 12, his art and the influence of his art is very rooted in the edgy New York City street culture that in a lot of ways is quite embodied by the cultural ethos of the skate park. So we thought that naming the skate park in Highbridge Park after Basquiat would be really appropriate. So obviously these are just recommendations. The Parks Department may or may not accept them, but the committee voted unanimously on 3 of them. And on the 4th, the one for Basquiat, it was 7 in favor and 1 opposed. The person opposed didn't have anything against Basquiat, but just felt that since, you know, he's a Brooklyn guy, that maybe a Manhattan site wasn't, she didn't object to it. She just didn't think that was, she was not as in favor of it as the others. So I did get some feedback that I had a misspelling of Constance Baker Motley's name, which I've since corrected. Thank you, James. And do people have any questions? Richard. And then
I have both a comment and a question.
Yes.
The comment, just very briefly, I want to tell a story that I haven't had a chance to tell in more than 40 years. Early in my career, one of the first things I did was to move to New Haven, Connecticut with a group of organizers. We were placed in people's homes, and my first place to stay while starting that work was with Constance Baker Motley's mother and family in New Haven. And the heritage is what we're offering to do now is really just a small piece of the heritage that not only Constance Baker Motley built as a judge, but that whole family had built in leadership in New Haven. It's a pleasure to be part of it. All 4 of those are good nominations. The question I want to ask with that, I was part of the discussion a number of months ago about the renaming of Bennett Park. And
I'm going to actually stop you there. We didn't want to.
There's a very specific reason for raising it now. It's in context.
Okay.
My question is really, we had a number of people at that meeting speak up that this particular racist sins of James Gordon Bennett was something that we should pay attention to redressing.
Yes.
My question to you as committee chair is why that didn't fit in with this particular grouping in this particular
So
Parks Department initiative.
Yes, I hear and understand your question. So we've got an ongoing conversation in the committee on that issue. The deadline, this is very time sensitive, and the deadline is for the Parks Department's initiative to name parks and parks facilities after African Americans as part of that initiative. Because that's not the direction that the Bennett Park renaming is going to go, although the thing that referenced it is the racist history of James Gordon Bennett, the conversation around that renaming is likely to go in a direction of the Lenape. That's part of a larger conversation that's not time specific. So rather than get into part of it, we put a thumbtack in that, and we're revisiting that again next month with some input, hopefully from the Lenape Center. That's why
Thank
it's not in here. Kathy?
So Isidro, you have a question? So that
I actually had my hand up first, so
Kathy had her hand up first, then Tanya, then Isidro.
thank you.
Does
No,
Lily
it's
chair
fine.
this
Tanya,
meeting?
Isidro, and then I'll go.
Okay. Okay, Tanya?
Yeah, I had I had a comment and a suggestion. The comment is first of all, I just want to say thanks for the work on this and doing the work to try to recognize people who have contributed a great deal to this community. I wanted to say I do notice that you know, we have one Black woman amongst 3 Black men, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I just think I think in general women, but then we look at Black women, like we get the short end of the stick. And it's in terms of recognition of our contributions, and we get buried underneath, you know, the gender thing. And I think that is a problem, like I said, in women in general, in terms of being honored and recognized in public forums like this. So I wanted to suggest, you know, that, you know, we have a Black woman and even it out, like, you know, 2 Black men, 2 Black women. I wanted to know what you thought, Liz, about Lucille Bolger.
Mm.
She founded Cloth.
Yeah. She
And
is,
I don't know if I don't think there's anything honoring her at all, but
yeah,
you know.
there is, I mean, Lucille was amazing. There are things named after Lucille Bolger in this community, including a street and a facility.
Okay.
So I absolutely take your point. The Parks Department was welcoming, you know, 1 or 2 suggestions per community board. We are already pushing the limit at 4.
Okay.
How we came up with this list is we sort of had one of very much our own in the form of Obi, a former member. We have a Black woman of fame who was a resident of the community, a Black man of fame who was a resident of the community, and then Basquiat, who's really just in a class by himself for so many reasons.
all right.
So we did take
Tanya, does that answer your question, Tanya?
Does that help?
No, I don't think she's finished. So
Okay.
you want to finish your thought, Liz? And
No,
then I can
actually,
give you my feet.
I was finished, and I was just asking, does that work for you?
Thank you. Kathy,
I'm sorry. I
are
think
you finished with your questions? Because I have
she's got a follow up.
I'm not finished. I'm not finished. Why do I keep getting interrupted? I'm not finished. I wanted to, you know, I do appreciate what you're saying, Liz. I just wanted to put that out there and make awareness of, you know, the gender disparities are not just they also apply to women of color and to Black women. And so I just want to also make us always be aware of that, and be aware of the diminishing of Black women in a lot of these spaces. And so that's why I'm bringing it out there. I don't know what you can do about it. I do understand your point that, you know, they're ultimately going to decide. I just hope that you could take that back as part of the public comment, that you know, there's a feeling from some that, you know, we need to make sure that we are considering you know, gender and considering that when they're making the final decisions.
Yes. So trying to be mindful of time. I want to go on to the next question, but I do want to let you know that sort of in answer to that, and also in response to Richard's question, part of the reason why the committee is taking so long looking at this larger issue that was sparked by Bennett Park, but is now so much larger than that, is making sure that when we come up with a large initiative of names after whom to rename many parks and places within parks after people from this community, that it includes a broadly representative list by culture, by gender, and takes all of that into account. I want to be mindful of how much time I'm taking up here and move to the next question, which is Isidro followed by...
Wait a second. Isidro and Catherine, do you have any questions related to the resolution itself so that we can stop screen sharing?
Oh, do you...
I do have a question about the resolution.
Okay, but do you
About
still
the wording of
screen
it?
share?
What was that?
Do you still need me to screen share?
I don't need this. I don't need the screen share.
Okay,
So we can remove it. Thank you.
okey doke.
So
Yes.
Liz, great job on your part in making sure that there is obviously representation from African American brothers and sisters. And I agree with Tanya. Gender has to be, in equal terms. Having said that, I see that these parks all fall under the High Bridge area. And
Yes.
like Richard was saying, like let's move also, west of Broadway to make sure that our African American brothers and sisters are also represented west of Broadway. And I hope that this is not going to be left for another times where we're going to perhaps be limited in naming parks, not only for brothers and sisters, but also for the Latin community. So I don't know how this selection was made only to select High Bridge. So I want to know.
I can speak to that. So there's two things. One is, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but I hear your question and you are so right. So if you look at the minutes of not our March meeting, but our February meeting, it includes a very long list, like 30 different sites, 25 or 30 different sites around the district. The reason why these are all in in Highbridge Park is Obie lived near Highbridge Park. Constance Baker Motley lived across the street from Highbridge Park. Larry Neal lived across the street from this particular sliver of the park and was in that very part of the park pretty much every day. And Basquiat, his art is very much about the ethos of street art, graffiti art that's really embodied in what a skate park is all about.
Excellent.
So that's why it's not like we're trying to
Excellent.
Yeah. All right. Catherine, for the sake of time, thank you.
Yeah.
Are you clear on your questions before? Yes. Okay, Catherine.
And I'm sorry if this was already responded in previous meetings. Once this is submitted, right, if it's voted unanimously or positively and submitted to parks and they choose to go Highbridge, are those names all locked in, or is it just that, okay, they reopen this whole renaming process again?
So these would be our 4 recommendations for this round of parks namings. Again, if you look at the minutes from our February meeting, there's a very long list of parks that could be named, and we have a very long list of many different people after whom it would really be appropriate to honor with these kinds of namings, and also some more conceptual names like Lenape names specific to place. So that is much more complicated because there are just more parts, which is why, and again, it's not time specific, which is why we held off on that.
All right.
No, I mean, my question was more about, is it that the names we're as a community board, right, giving these recommendations, but are they going to, once you submit it, right, and they say, you know what, we're going to rename these parts of Highbridge, are they going just to take it at hand exclusively from the community board, or similar to the other parts of the city, are they beginning a new and formalized renaming process like they did in other areas that wasn't just with community boards?
So the Parks Department is always open to public feedback, often through community boards, but doesn't have to be. So like when folks in the community wanted to rename David Friedlander Square, which is the intersection of Broadway and St. Nicholas Avenue between 169th and 170th Street after Juan Pablo Duarte, that didn't come from the community board. That was generated by folks in the community. And although the community board ultimately, I believe, had a resolution supporting that, it wasn't generated by the community board. So the Parks Department has a process for public feedback and public input for, naming parks, for naming all sorts of things. So I guess that's an incredibly long-winded way of saying, yes, they have a process that of community engagement, and this is part of that.
Thank you. Deb, one last question before we do the vote.
Yeah, I just wanted to see, I was making a distinction in my mind, but I just am not sure that it was the right distinction, and I'm listening to Catherine. These are not renamings. These are areas that
correct.
don't have a name. So
That is
I
correct.
think that, right, so there's a distinction between a process of renaming is way more big and I would imagine sort of there's a lot more issues in that. These don't have names.
Well, I mean, they don't,
I mean,
they don't
names,
have,
but then-
they don't have names after people. They have names. It's called, you know, the Hybrid Rec Center.
But you see the distinction
I
I'm trying to
see.
make.
So
Okay,
then,
yeah,
sure.
So okay, got it. So I'm just
So I
saying
will
this
take
is,
re
so
out
here,
of
like, I
that.
feel like we have more of a shot. The other thing,
Correct.
that's more. Okay, thank you.
So you guys are clear? Good. We spent a little bit more time than what we intended to, but thank you for the explanations. I think that we've all understood the
all-
process. So, Ozzy, let's vote on the two resolutions. Let's call them A and B.
Can I just say one very quick thing by way of a community, by way of a committee report? We will be continuing our conversation about renaming. And we also have on our agenda a presentation from HPD and Cloth regarding the piece of the ELIZA that relates to the Arts, Culture, and Technology Center. That's it.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, so resolution A is the land use resolution. Resolution B is
You please
pause.
restate that resolution, the land use resolution.
Wayne,
It's basically supporting the proposed designation of Holyrood Episcopal Church as an individually landmark building.
Thank you.
okay. Richard Ullman,
Yes on both.
Mary Anderson,
Yes to both.
Wayne,
Yes to both.
Tanya,
Yes, both.
Catherine,
Yes to both.
Faye,
Yes,
yes to both.
yes, all yes.
Okay, yes to both. I vote yes for both. Francisco Lopez, you voting for Domingo, correct?
No, for myself.
No, are you a chair of a committee?
Yes,
Which committee are you chairing?
business development.
Domingo is not the chair of the Business Development Committee?
No, not even, not,
But that
not
changes my last month.
changes, yeah.
Domingo resigned.
Did he resign from the board or from the committee?
It was from the
To my
committee.
knowledge, the committee.
Okay, I did not know that. Thank you for letting me know. So, hold on a second. Okay, Francisco, how do you vote?
Yes to both.
Yes to both. Liz,
I vote yes to both, and I have a question about committee membership when you're done with the roll call.
Isidro,
Yes to both.
Ariel, I didn't see him. Ariel,
No,
are
he's
you
not.
here?
He's not going to be able to be
He's
here.
not here.
He's not here tonight.
Okay. Hold on a second. Debbie,
Thanks,
That-
Josie. Yes to both.
okay. Jonathan, I didn't see him. Rosie, I didn't see her. Steve Simon, is he in?
Mm-mm.
No, I didn't see
I haven't
Steve.
seen.
Curtis,
Yes to both.
and Eli?
Yes to both, especially like good friend Obi.
Um,
God
did
rest
I
his soul.
miss? Did I miss? Are you here? And I didn't call your name. Did I miss anyone? I don't think I did. Okay, thank you.
I have a question about committee membership.
Let me allow. Are you finished with voting, Ozzy? If you
Hold
may.
on. Both resolution passed.
Both resolutions passed.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Congratulations. A lot of honor to those people that we knew, those people that we got to know, and especially Obi, who was a dear friend of mine. Yes, what's your question on this?
Yeah, I've really appreciated Francisco's input on the Parks and Cultural Affairs Committee. But I am guessing that since we all have to serve on two committees, usually people who chair committees don't wind up staying on a second committee because the executive committee becomes their second committee, all of which is a long way of asking, Francisco, do you plan to stay on Parks and Cultural Affairs?
If it's legal to do so, I would like to. If not, then I just have to abide by the.
Oh, no, you're welcome to. Just not everybody feels like being on three committees. So,
Yeah, that's fine with me. I have no
all
problem.
right. I mean, in Zoom times, it's a little easier.
Yes, it is.
Zoom time.
Okay.
Eli,
And I have my hand up too for, yeah,
sorry.
question.
Go ahead because I didn't have my hand up.
Steve
Okay.
has his hand before Osi.
Oh, was Steve before me or am I going?
No, you were first and then Steve.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I have a comment. My comment is on February 1st, 2021, I was removed as from the Business Development Committee as assistant chair. And then I see this information. And I believe that I was removed so that I could not become chair of business development. And I just want to say on record that I see you. And I think that, I have some serious questions. There was no explanation given. In terms of why I was moved, in terms of, I was not even consulted. I was just put in a totally different committee on a different day without consultation. And after 3 years of doing tremendous work on business development, I was just taken off on the first day of Black History Month on February 1st, 2021, via a letter. Never was spoken to about it. And then I hear this news. I'm just saying, I see you, I see what you're doing, and I'm putting on record. That's it.
Steve Simon.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just joining the meeting. I thought perhaps based on what Liz had said a few minutes ago or what I heard from you, are we now discussing the Parks Committee resolution?
We already voted on it.
Yeah, they were already voting on it. Both of them.
All right, very good. All right.
All right, Steve. Ozzy, you had another question, or?
Yeah, I think that we have to come up with some system, and I'm not sure who need to do that. That if a chair is no longer a chair of a committee, then I guess I should know about that. So it's not on my roster here for today.
All right, there were not just Domingo's resignation, but I'm gonna put together a report. Domingo got a beautiful job offer, but I'll get you that, and I'll get you another resignation from Naisha Diaz, who last week also resigned. Hopefully, there's not something behind that as well, some kind of conspiracy theories of why she resigned. I don't know. She just sent a letter saying that she got a job at NYC at the mayor's office. And she got a nice job offer. She didn't want to be part of a conflict, and she'd resigned.
She resigned from the board?
From the board altogether. The same way Chris Ventura did, and the same way others have in the past few weeks. So there's a lot of people that are resigning, yes.
Okay, I just in terms of the roster, I really need to know about it, like for the obvious reason. Thank you.
We have to, as soon as we have it all together by the end of this week, then our intentions were to send it and have it before the general meeting list, before we move on to the committee reports.
Yeah, I just, I understand that committee composition is a complicated thing. It's a dynamic process, and I understand all of that. But I just, in response to what Tanya said, I'm not in anybody's head, so I ascribe no motive. But I know that as a member of the board, I certainly appreciated the enormity of her work on the Business Development Committee. I was surprised when she was removed from that committee. And while I also appreciate Francisco's work on that committee, I say this without any prejudice to him, I do I'm a little perplexed by the timing of all of the personnel changes in the Business Development Committee. And while I have no idea what Tanya's wishes are with regard to that, it would be appropriate if they were taken into account going forward, because I think she has offered a lot and has a lot to continue to offer.
All righty. So
It will be dealt with, trust. Thank
you.
Francisco, welcome. I know it was a sudden thing that you weren't expecting to be here. We're happy to have you. Kudos to Domingo. I understand that we all have our families and we have our futures ahead of us, and we all have to make the best decision for our futures instead of sometimes Domingo's given a lot to this community board as well. And he felt that he needed to make that change. Those who have his number can give him a call. And for if he wants to share his personal life and his decisions, that's something that he'll have to do within his purview, whatever he wants to do. So Francisco, got a few minutes to share with us, and I'd like to congratulate you from the beginning on your Black and Brown Investing article that came out on patch.com. So you expand on it. I don't want to take credit for what you've done and what you can do, what you've done in this community. So you have a few minutes to share with us what you've done on the first day on the job. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Eli. Good evening, people. I just started a Facebook group for Black and Brown folks who want to discuss or get educated on stocks, investments, real estate, in a space where it's something that we created. I'm sure you guys are aware that for years, Black and Brown folks were kind of limited with the access that they received from Wall Street. Just investment and banking and anything financial, we were kind of left in the dark. So I just figured if we could create something where we could share education and knowledge and intel, we could do it in a space where it's our own. So I created that sometime in 2020. Obviously, with the pandemic, we got more time on our hands, so I was able to kind of make that happen. Right now, we got about 2,000 people in the group. If anyone here would like to join, it's on Facebook. It's not hard to find, just Black and Brown Investments. So that's one thing. As far as business development, we discussed how tech is affecting our small businesses. Ashley Fernandez presented, she made a presentation about how tech is affecting us negatively and positively, as well as the PPP loan situation and how that has been affecting our community. She reported that 14% of our businesses here actually received the PPP loans, which is astonishing. I mean, for me, at least 14% just seems so minimal. So Ashley is gonna bring back that presentation and do it again, because we didn't reach quorum, but we still had a conversation to kind of iron out some of her details that she had in her presentation. So she's gonna give it back to us in April, hopefully with all the information needed on her end as far as tech. But we also, one of the things that came out of that meeting was, how do we help our small businesses and restaurants with the Uber Eats and DoorDash, the way they are kind of killing our businesses' bottom line. And we came up with something that it's in its small stages, preliminary stages. Nobles has reached out to the Manhattan Borough President's office to see who can we speak to in April about tech and how food and tech align, and who are the right people to speak to, so we can get more information on possibly starting a New York City sponsored Uber Eats, not Uber Eats itself, but our own version of what that would look like. So again, we're all in the preliminary stages. As far as any information after that, I don't have any at this moment. We should have more after our April meeting. And that's pretty much it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Lastly, yes, as Eli said, Domingo has stepped down. This is new to me, so if anyone can kind of send me a link of my duties, so I could perform them to my greatest ability, I will appreciate that. Just send me a link or somewhere where I can go and look at the duties for myself. But I'm happy to be here, Tanya. I feel you. I understand you. I hear you. I just want you to know that whatever you feel might have happened, I have no idea what's happening. If there's something happening, I just want you to know that, because I value you and your opinion as a woman, as a Black woman in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Francisco, for your kind words. Faye?
I'm coming.
Take your time.
Yes, no, I cannot take my time. Good evening, everyone. Okay, yes, on my report, I don't even know how to start, but I want to just beginning by thanking, everyone who supported this. I want to start with Benjamin Wayne, of course, or Wayne Benjamin, who has been a great supporter, internal guidance and over in all possible way. Tanya, who also accompanied him during the meeting. So as you probably, some of you already saw in the video, it was a very hectic meeting in my personal opinion. There was several things that were supposed to happen that didn't happen. Well, not many, but I think that we accomplished a lot of things with this meeting, but perhaps the most important thing not necessarily were, accomplished, which I will, at the end of the report, I thought I will facilitate that. But I wanted to say that, that the School Construction Authority, which is the main force in here, they came to officially announce their plan to, or appears in front of the committee to announce their plan, the intention in our community. And that is basically to what they wanted, what they announcing is that they came to discuss, in their own words, explain the process of the acquisition for the new sites, and also what they think that is the best course of action in this process. So the what is the main or the essence of their presentation, I should say, it is that there are two schools, a public school, PS 18 and PS 278, that apparently what they saying is that the landlord, this is on the side that where the schools are located, are private property. The landlord is not, or doesn't want to renew the leases. And then the best solution that the School Construction Authority, along with the Department of Education, came up with is to relocate, collocate these two schools and the size that is located at 3761 10th Avenue, which is close where the Con Edison site is, and also MS5 school. Now, I think, and this is my the way I perceive things according to the unfolding of this presentation, it was very brief, I can say. I don't think that there was more questions than answered, especially for those who were involved in the process and asking questions. Um, I also wanted to say that the on the DOE side, we have our superintendent and the executive superintendent, who is the boss of the superintendent. But the way that the way they responded to all this is that we're trying to engage them in the conversation, but they basically say that they wanted to witness or hear what the community have to say, which is the main purpose also, along with the declaration or the disclosure of the school construction authority. Both parties indicated that they wanted just to hear from the community once the school construction authority discloses their intention. I personally, I feel that the DOE probably should come more prepared and probably facilitate more information, because I believe that this is something that is happening simultaneously. They should be in conversation simultaneously, because I'm not sure that effort from the DOE and the parts of DOE had been made to try to um, let's say buy the building, like Wayne, one of the things that they brought up, in the conversation, buy the building, or any effort, let me say, because I'm sure that Wayne hopefully may say something at the end during his report. But we don't see that there was any effort, at least that they indicated at that time, that the DOE had made to at least try to keep to, so the school can preserve the sites, the present site where they are located. So now, through all this, since there was no other tone than basically this school is going to be relocated and co-located, one of the schools, few of the parents, because not many parents spoke on behalf of the from PS 18, but the few parents that spoke, they seems to be some of them in agreement. But then, unlike then, you have PS 278 who are completely reluctant to the process and not really happy about this. Now, other parents also, or community folks, and express concern about that this new site of the new school, it's too close to Connecticut, and although they don't mention the words about radiation or health concern about that, but basically that's what they trying to manifest on their comments, that they concerned because it's too close to Connecticut. So also other about the spaces and so forth. But I wanted to say for the record that one of the things that we highly appreciate is the fact that Wayne provided a lengthy, I will say, view based or descriptive views based on his committee, the way his committee perceives things, and according to what the committees or how the committee fits into this, and looking at this and the aspect of the zoning and so forth. So I also want to report that many parents, I think that complain that this project or process has not given sufficient community engagement, and this is a very, very, it's not a deep concern among members of the community. So I wish I can further elaborate even more than that, but time is an essence in here. But I also, before I even exit this conversation, I wanted to say that we passed a resolution which we, in that resolution, what we title it, the resolution is supporting construction of a new school building for PS 18 and PS 278, but with reservation regarding the school construction's site selection process and community engagement. And the reason for this is because we feel that this process, the way they have, how do you call, they have managing this process so far, like I said at the beginning, it's too many questions and no answers. So especially when it comes to the and the size of the community and the community input, and the fact that the DOE also seems to be in limbo. Basically, we all respect or do respect that they deserve. We thought that DOE, and when I say DOE, I mean District 6 probably is going to facilitate like further discussion on this matter and so forth, but that was not unfortunately the case. I know that we have a deadline to submit a position on, the board position on this, but there are issues that remain latent. For example, we question the fact that we received their communication dated on February 2nd, but it was not received until 10 days later, which is February the 22nd. But at the end, anyway, more of that, I wanted just to allow, or leave more space for Wayne Benjamin to carry on, and provide his own input in this. So I don't want to dominate, just the whole conversation. And again, Wayne, I deeply want to thank you and Tanya for all the hands that you provided us and for being present at this important meeting, and for the collaboration was outstanding. And I want to deeply thank you. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Faye. Just really briefly, this SCA presentation was initially referred to both land use and youth and education, but the SCA reps were not able to attend the land use meeting. So the land use committee reviewed the materials that were sent to the board office.
Yes.
Provided a list of questions, mostly from the planning and the sort of site selection process, because I don't believe there are any zoning issues per se. And we provided those questions to Faye, who combined them with questions generated by youth and education, and they were sent to the SCA reps in advance. But just to be really clear what's on the table, under the School Construction Authority Act, when they select a site, they are required to give notice to the affected community board, and the community board has 45 days to provide written comments on not the design or anything. Right now, there isn't a design. We have 45 days to provide comments on what they call the site plan or the proposed site. And that deadline is March 29th. And that's what Faye is saying. The current schools are in private property. Actually, the leases expired, I believe, in 2018, 2019. They were extended for 5 years, and the landlord told SCA that's it. They're not extending any further. So we recognize there is a need to build a new school to house them, because at the end of their lease, they are, homeless. But we have reservations about the process, and it's understanding that SCA has due diligence responsibilities, but once they've narrowed down to a few viable sites, we feel they should have included the community board, the parents, and other stakeholders to evaluate those sites to see which ones make sense, which are pros and cons. And what they've done is they have, basically gone through their due diligence with their consultants, and they've come up with, one site, and that's it. And that's what we find, problematic. And so if they're also clear that they have to go to the city council to get approval to purchase the site. So if they don't get that approval, then moving forward on this particular site is not a given. But they also point out that a new school needs to be finished and open for September 2024, and that it takes a year to design the school and 2 to 3 years to build. And while in its 30-year history, SCA is proud of the fact they've never, ever, ever missed an opening date, that if they go back and find another site, that may challenge it, but we need to see. But that is basically what was discussed, actually for 3 hours, Faye. It wasn't that short of a presentation.
Oh boy.
It was a 3-hour discussion.
Good.
And that's what the resolution says. It outlines, the process. It outlines the fact that we understand that they need a new building, but we're very concerned with the process.
And
All right.
I wanted, if I may, I wanted to add that we are still in conversation, and when I say meet, a youth and education committee, we feel that due to the lack of community engagement, maybe we should have a public hearing on this, because parents in the school community are very dissatisfied. They feel that the meeting that we had was not sufficient. As a matter of fact, there was a lot of folks in there that unfortunately we couldn't acknowledge or give them the opportunity to ask questions. Glennie was supposed to direct the meeting, and unfortunately, last minute, she had some kind of obstacles and couldn't manage the meeting. So that threw me out of balance a little bit. But I did my best to try to cope with the situation. But yes, I think that and I wanted just to reiterate this, because this is a conversation that we definitely should pursue, having a public hearing, so where folks, especially those who doesn't speak English, may have the opportunity to provide their input. So this is my 2 cents, and I want to thank you again. Thank Wayne again.
All righty, Faye, and Wayne, thank you very much. Isidro, the floor is yours. Keep it. Oh, wait a minute. I think I have two people that have questions. Debbie and Steve. Whoever's first. I guess Steve was
Yeah.
first.
Yeah, Faye or Wayne, maybe I missed this, but was the question asked whether they looked at the possibility of identifying 2 different sites, one for each school?
Steve, that was one of the questions that was on the land use list, yes.
And what was the answer?
I mean, they basically said, they looked at a variety of options, including that. And, this was, the better site. We had, remember, there was a larger site, and we thought it was odd they didn't pick that. That larger site is proposed for a development, and the developer is amenable to providing, space for a school, but it wouldn't be enough to accommodate both, and it would be in the basement. So, we did, and members of the public also raised the issue of, did they look at, multiple sites so that it wouldn't necessarily be a co-located. But my point is, that was part of the, including the community board and stakeholders in the discussion. Once you've identified viable sites to look at the pros and cons, they looked at those, they considered them, but they did it all internally without any outside input.
Yeah, well, that's to be expected. That's the process. But do we know whether they ever looked at the vacant lot on the west side of Broadway, south of 204th Street, which they had wanted to build a school on years ago, and they accepted the word of the property owner, I don't know, what, 10, 15 years ago, that she was going to build housing on it, and never did. So I would say that property should be back in play.
Steve, you can feel free to submit that comment to them on their website. One of the things they pointed out, the website to which the community board can submit comments by the 28th, absolutely anyone can submit comments to that website.
Okay.
Thank you. Debbie?
I mean, this is more of a comment than a question. And maybe it did come up, but it strikes me that there's a little bit, and not for necessarily a bad reason, but it's a little bit the tail wagging the dog of the construction authority being in the first position and not sort of DOE proper. And this seems to me, as I understood it, that it's a big issue, that it's not just moving the school. I mean, they're in an awful place for a school. I mean, in and of itself, it's not bad to move that school, because it's no place for kids to go where it is now. But they're moving it out of the zone, and meaning especially for elementary kids who don't travel on their own and have to be escorted, that's taking 2 elementary schools out of the zone. So that's a very different implication than just moving a school. And it puts a lot of pressure on PS 98, but that conversation is a conversation that doesn't get had with the, SCA can't say anything about that. They were just, they were handed, go build a school, whatever. So that's just my statement. Like, this thing is big,
So-
and
That-
that's,
That point was actually raised by both land use and by youth and education. What is the current zone? How does the location impact the travel distance? And what type of data do you have on, who currently, walks to school now, and what percentage, and how is that impacted by the relocation? So that actually was hit by both committees. That information was not available at the discussion, but as I recall properly, they did say they would forward it to probably to the community board. So Faye, you probably want to follow up with Ebenezer to make sure he gets it.
So Debbie, you mentioned the school PS 90, 190? What is school?
No, I said it puts a lot of pressure on 98.
On 98.
Because that's like the only, anyway, but I don't mean to relitigate or whatever. You had your 3-hour meeting. I'm just saying it's not, losing zone schools is a big deal. And that's not, SCA should be leading that discussion. DOE needs to be at that table. CEC needs to be at the table, and we need to be at the table, to my mind. But
yeah, well, the problem is on private property, and their hands are tied. But they should.
I'm not questioning that they need to move, but
it's okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Trying to be more clear. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Faye. Thank you, Deb, for your questions, and thank you, Wayne. Isidro?
So I'm going to report that the licensing meeting went as long as parks, education and Wayne's committee. Huge meeting that we had. I'm just kidding. We had a very short meeting. Very, very non-issue, if you can say that. We only had 6 applications. 2 of them were withdrawn, either prior to the meeting or at the meeting. So nothing made to report. We would write up the minutes and resolutions for 4 resolutions only for licensing. So not much to report. Chair, that's my time.
All right, Isidro. Unless you have nothing to report, my assumption is that there's no questions. So, Jonathan is not in. Richard, anything to report on the LGBT?
What I want to do tonight is to make a couple recommendations. I'm probably as frustrated as anyone that this has been slow to restart after having been a very active task force 2, 3, 4 years ago. And I've tried to do I guess I'd call it a deep dive over what's different this time around. Why has this been as slow as it has been? And I didn't expect it, but of the things I looked at, I didn't expect it tonight. But Liz gave a very good preview of that. It's my 3rd and 4th committee. That really does take up a lot of time to try to do things that way. There's some other organizing issues there. I'm looking at choices that people have made, that some issues work better inside the board, within structures like a standing committee. Some issues work a little better outside the board. I don't think I have the answer on that, but my recommendation would be to take a 6-month pause on this, think it through the summer, and then look at what we have viable at the end of the summer. 2 other just quick thoughts with that. And obviously that's a potential for a discussion, but let me offer 2 other thoughts with that. One, it's about 3 or 4 years since this executive committee asked that the washrooms on the 6th floor of our building be designated gender neutral washrooms. That hasn't happened, and I would appreciate if we would appreciate if the chair and district manager working together would see that that happens as quickly as possible. It came from the executive committee. It's long overdue. One other thought, I listened carefully. I think it was 2 months ago that a colleague on this executive committee raised some questions about notice and posting. Good questions. standing committees and task forces do have some different obligations in terms of what notice and posting is. And I think if that's something that we want to approach in a different way, then it belongs to the bylaws committee to do. Having added those last two things, the main recommendation out of this report is simply to put a pause till the end of the summer.
Thank you, Richard. Anyone has any comments to make? No? Thank you, Richard. Mary Anderson.
Coming up. Hi, everybody. I want to say our meetings have been pretty lively lately. We've had some really great presentations. Our presentations at our last meeting was from Dr. Orley Hauser about the Care Cafe at Wurtzweiler School of Social Work and the kind of work that they're doing and reaching out into the community, providing a variety of services and presentations on different things, including intergenerational trauma, hate, anti-Semitism, discrimination, and that sort of thing. One of the problems that, of course, they're running into, and they were able to get some funding to provide tablets and connectivity for the people who were participating, so that they could do so. You know, it's one of the things that we keep running into. We want to invite more seniors to be a part of the committee and you know, tune into the presentations, but without the equipment and the connectivity and the knowledge of how to use things like the tablets, it's difficult to engage people. We also had a presentation from Juan Rosa about the ranked choice voting, which, you know, it was a very informational presentation for a lot of us. And the worry about this is that there are so many people in the community that haven't heard about it, that don't know anything about it, and you know, how to get the information out. So, you know, that's something that, you know, we're really concerned about. So if there's any way we can, you know, further this knowledge into the community, we need to do so. Our next meeting is going to be on April 1st. It's not All Fools Day. We hope. We're going to have two presentations. One will be about the Jocelyn Herrick project by Yolanda Rodriguez. She was actually at the last general meeting and did a brief presentation. So we're going to have a more extensive presentation about that project. And we'll also have Jocelyn Manaya, who's going to give us an update on what's going on with the DA's office, what's going on with the different scams related to seniors. There's a lot of stuff going on again in that respect. So that is the end of my report. If anybody has any questions.
Anyone has any questions? Does anyone have any suggestions as to reach out to the Board of Elections so that we can take the initiative to start, you know, communicating to our seniors and our community in general about ranking choice?
And it's not just the seniors, it's, you know, regular folks. I mean, I have a friend who I asked if she had heard about it, and she said no. And she's, you know, younger than I am. So
I think that,
yeah, go ahead, Deb.
Sorry, I just jump in, but just I couldn't agree more, Eli, and it's not something I had thought of. And Mary, it's just such an important issue, and I hadn't really thought about it in the way you're you know, presented it. But this is one of my pet things. Like, I'm obsessed with ranked choice voting, and I think it'll hopefully do a lot to the way what we learn about issues, as opposed to, because it kind of diminishes the sort of more negative talk because people don't want to lose the votes from the other. Anyway, but that's not what I meant to say. There was, when I got interested in the topic, there are a couple of sort of national organizations that do like the really like, this is what it is and step by step, and they have these splashy presentations. And I think that really would be a great service. So I'm listening to you, Mary, and I'm listening to you, what you just said, Eli, and I think it's a great idea. And I could probably come up with a suggestion or two if we decided, you know, when we get closer in to do something. Well, actually, we are getting closer in. So.
Yeah.
Thank you. Liz, I see your hand.
Yeah, just following up on that, I think that although the community board is not a can we invite Juan Rosa to give a short presentation about ranked choice voting? Because he is very familiar with the issue. He works with a nonpartisan organization. You know, it's mostly Democrats up here, but ranked choice voting is for the Democratic and for the Republican primary. So it's not really a partisan issue. And, you know, I think that if we could get him, I know how in the beginning of the meeting, we will often have like short 5-minute presentations from nonprofit organizations. I think that having Juan or somebody, you know, whether it's somebody from Common Cause or the League of Women Voters, somebody come and talk to the community board about this, you know, I think that would really help. And yeah.
Great. Good friends.
Could we do that for like the
Yeah.
April general meeting or the May general meeting? April would probably be better.
Probably do it for the next 2 or 3 months to have different organizations, starting with one whom I know, to come in and again give us more of an in-depth presentation about ranking choice. Steve, so we can close it out.
I mean, I love Juan, but I would first ask the Board of Elections if they have somebody who can speak on the subject. So we might be able to get the info directly from them and find out how they intend to implement it and count the ballots. I'd like to hear from the board itself.
Well, you know, Juan is with NALEO. He's with a nonprofit.
I'm aware. I'm
Okay.
aware.
All right, we could do both, but for the sake of timing, probably get someone, whoever has the more availability to come into the general meeting. So thank you both for your contributions. Thanks, Liz. Steve, you're next.
Did we hear from the housing committee?
Ariel is not in.
No. All right. Well, I was curious to hear. He had somebody from Presbyterian Hospital go to his committee to give a report on the vaccine issue, which of course is a major topic of concern at my committee meeting, and we were waiting for her to show up at my meeting, but she was at his, and I won't comment any further. But
Do you want me to comment?
I feel as though it was an intrusion on the work of my committee. In any case, the latest health department stats show a decline in all 4 of our zip codes in terms of a positivity rate. So this latest report on the whole is better than what we've seen lately. In zip code 40 now ranks up at as number 89 in the city. Last time I checked, about 2 weeks ago, it was at number 52. So its positivity rate is at 6.07%, 74 new cases during the period from March 6th to March 12th. Zip code 34, which had been all the way up at 39 in the 39 slot, is now down at 94, and its positivity rate during that period was 5.72%, 63 new cases. The zip code 32 is at the 107th rank, 5.44%, 115 new cases, and zip code 33, 106 is ranked at number 116, and this is out of 177 zip codes in New York City, and its positivity rate for that week was 503% and 90 new cases. So during this period from March 6th to March 12th, we had 342 new cases, which of course is not good, but it's better than the week that ended March 1st, where we had 485 new cases. So the total of cases now since the beginning of the pandemic in all 4 zip codes, 15,766 cases. And we've had, well, I didn't add this up. We've had, I believe, over 600 deaths. We've number of adults that have been vaccinated with at least 1 dose is 43,325, and the number of fully vaccinated 21,062. So overall, for our 4 zip codes, about 25% have gotten at least 1 dose, and about half of that, 12.3% have had both doses, or at least, let me just say, have been fully vaccinated, because I have to assume now that some of them have received the Johnson & Johnson. The bad news that I got last week was that despite these overall good statistics, there has been a very bad cluster around the Dyckman houses at almost 10%. And as a result, the health department, in conjunction with, I believe, the Test and Trace Corps and others, is sending a mobile van to Dyckman houses tomorrow. Actually, this is a van that's operated by a private doctor, Karen Thornton. The van will be at 10th Avenue and 201st Street from 11 to 4. They will be doing testing and distributing PPE and information. If anybody is available to help out, you'd be welcome to join and help with distributing the information, and especially the PPE. So at my meeting, the representative of New York Presbyterian finally did show up. And to tell you the truth, she really didn't have a hell of a lot of information to give us. Wasn't really rated answering any of our questions, which has become a standard thing. There was a new variant discovered at the hospital recently. It was reported in the New York Times, and Dr. Fauci even referred to it in a White House briefing about a week ago, or at least at this rate about 2 weeks ago. And Dr. Ho, who spoke to our full board meeting a couple of months back, was the one who found the variant. His team, they analyzed over 1,142 samples from patients at the medical center, and found that 12% of them, 137, had been infected with this variant. And that what they found is that this variant transmits about 9% faster. Apparently, not necessarily causing more fatalities, but it is considered more serious because it is transmitting faster than the virus that's been prevalent up to now. So we had asked for information from the hospital as to how these patients are being treated. We didn't get any information. I'm hoping that Dr. Ho will be able to speak to our committee next month. We also did not receive the breakdown on vaccines that are being provided at the Armory for our 4 zip codes, which we consider to be important information, because we need to know to the extent to which the operation at the Armory is reaching out to people in our community, and we don't have that information really. The one positive note is that the bilingual call number, which the hospital set up in conjunction with the Northern Manhattan Improvement Corporation, the 646-838-0319, is now accepting calls not just from people 60 and over in the local zip codes, but also apparently people with the underlying medical conditions. So people in both of those categories who are looking for an appointment can call this bilingual call number. I would like to have Eleazar send a letter to the mayor and probably to the governor as well, urging them to set up another vaccination hub in Washington Heights and Inwood, further north in zip codes 40 or 34. I think we need to have another. We need to we need to make sure that essential workers and others whom the governor has said are eligible for vaccinations can actually get those vaccinations in our community. At this point, it's unclear where they can get them. They can't really travel to Yankee Stadium, and other places in Manhattan are either fully booked or are difficult to get to. And I would also like to see independent pharmacies, not just the chains, get these vaccines, as well as private doctors. So, I mean, if there's no objection, I would like to have Eliezer send a letter to the mayor and the governor asking for these things. And I'd rather not wait until our general board meeting to do a resolution, because I think decisions are being made on this issue right away. And I'd like to be able to have the community board weigh in on the subject. And finally, I just want to mention that the corner project has now opened up at its new permanent location at 500 West 180th Street on the corner at Amsterdam Avenue. And hopefully they'll be able to come to my committee meeting next month as well and give us a report. Thank you.
All right.
And a comment for Steve.
Wayne has a question.
Yeah, Steve, going back to the Armory as a vaccination site, has there been any discussion as to why it's not open 7 days a week, why it's not open on Mondays for vaccination?
Yeah, thank you, Wayne. This is one of the points I want. This is another reason I want that letter to go out to the mayor and the governor, because it's closed on Sundays and Mondays. It's only open 5 days a week. And I think it's important. I agree with you. It's absolutely important that we have something available 7 days a week. And they're saying that I don't know. I think I've gotten different answers to that question, either staffing or the supply. We need something available here 7 days a week.
Yeah, if the mayor and the governor are each advocating for, and for the president that matter, getting people vaccinated as fast as possible, and they're talking about even having some sites that are open 24/7.
Right.
It doesn't make sense for, what's supposed to be one of the largest sites in our community to be closed 2 days of the week.
Well, absolutely. I agree with you. This is another reason why I'm concerned and want to see them open. The mayor was quoted on one of the website news services, internet web services, saying that he was considering, in the light of this variant that was found at the hospital, opening up another vaccination hub in Washington Heights and Inwood. I think that would be great. I'm not sure where they can do it, because I'm not sure whether we have an available space for them now that the high schools and intermediate schools are opening up. But I think we should go on record in support of that request. But if we can't get a vaccination hub, we need to get it out to all of the pharmacies, all of the private doctors, to make it as convenient as possible for people to get the vaccines.
Faye?
Thank you. Steve, yes, I don't know if you were aware of, at least I didn't hear you saying anything, but today I received a notification from the Inwood Leadership Academy. That's a charter school that is located in 204 and 10th Avenue.
Sherman.
Well,
Sherman.
anything. The bottom line is that they open up, they're going to have a zine for the community, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Come in. Are you aware of that?
No, I wasn't. No, is that a 1 day? Is that a 1 day event, or is that going to go on continuously?
No, they've been declared. They're going to be a hope in the community, a hope, so people can go and have their vaccine in there.
Could you forward that notice to me?
Sure, I'll forward it to you in a few minutes. Yes.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Steve, any news on the recalling of the AstraZeneca vaccine? That is,
well, it hasn't been authorized. It's not authorized in the United States, as far as I know. It's not one of the 3 vaccines that have been provided in New York City. We don't have it.
Okay, it's causing a lot of ruckus up internationally.
Yeah, in Europe, yes, but As far as I know, I don't believe it was ever approved in, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't believe it was ever approved in the United States.
It was not approved.
Correct. It
Right,
was
thank
not approved in the United States yet.
Okay.
Right. Thank you. Debbie, your report.
Hi, thank you, Eli. So we had two primary items on the TNT agenda this past month. One was an update from Port Authority on the Restoring the George project, which, as people know, is like a gajillion dollar project over 10 years to basically rebuild that entire bridge and everything around it. So I would say, just for our community, one of the things that we'll see visibly first, but still has a little ways to go, is it looks like second quarter of 22 is when the north walkway will open. So as people might remember, for years, we've only had one walkway or the other for bikes and pedestrians, which creates a lot of conflict. They're doing north first, and then they'll do the south. North should be done, as I said, Q2 22, and that lands at 180th and Cabrini. So that's why I say, and then it's got, like, they built a little part, that part's already done basically, but can't open until obviously the whole walkway is done to the other side of New Jersey. So people can sort of see, there'll be more of like a park-like setting. So I would imagine that's going to have impacts on 180th Street. Then it'll take another 4 years, 22 to 26, till the south walkway is done. And only at that point in 2026 will there be both open. And then again, impacts would be sort of better balanced. All sorts of other information, but you can look at the notes when they come out. And the second thing was sort of a less typical kind of agenda item than we've had in a long time, which was more just a conversation about bike infrastructure in CB12. It's something that's sort of come up in sort of like a la carte ways. And I just wanted to have one conversation where DOT sat there and bike advocates sat there, and everybody just sort of all at one time talked about it and kind of got it on the record in sort of one moment. So DOT bike person was there. And again, people can look at the notes when I've got them published, or ask me later for anything on that. And just one note on an agenda item for my April meeting, which is that, as people may or may not know, when this board gets involved in co-namings, we actually have to adhere to sort of a calendar, because the city council votes on it twice a year. TNT meets twice a year. Anybody that's got a co-naming needs to come in one of 2 months of the year. One of those is April. There's going to be a co-naming coming our way for Coogan's. And so that'll be up on the April meeting. And I think that's all I've got right now.
Beautiful. Steve Simon, another questions.
Steve, did you still have something, or was that an old hand?
No, it's a new hand. Oh, but Debbie, by any chance, was there any discussion about the fences installed along the pathways on the bridge? As far as I know, right now, we just have one temporary fence that was installed to prevent suicides. Maybe it's on the north side, I don't remember now. But was there any discussion about the installation of those permanent high fencing?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, as people might remember, because this board was involved in so many important junctures along the way, there was a whole process, and then they sort of went back and redesigned it for fences that really would work against the worst things happening. And those are approved, and those are part of the walk. But that all comes into play in the walkway. That's part of the spec of the walkway. And again, that's actually because of the CB12 involvement in part. That's like the only thing that I know of that really got a little bit changed, and we all think improved, based on concerns raised by the board, and they, yeah, so that's it. So that's, obviously we'll first get installed the non-temporary kind, that are slightly more aesthetic we'll see it on the north side and then we'll see it on the south side, so.
All right.
Alrighty. Thank you, Steve.
Do you have the schedule on when the fencing goes in?
I like to.
I can just say that it'll be open by when it opened. I'm sorry, they'll be there. That's part of project completion. I don't know where in the project timeline of the walkway. So what we see now that looks done, if you stand at 108th and Cabrini, is not. It's what's called the ramp. It's the ADA, because it's finally going to give us accessibility and people not having to haul up and down stairs. And that's mostly done, but it's still part of the whole walkway, which is dependent on all the main, the things that hold up the bridge being done too. So I don't know where it fits in the midst of that now.
So are we about 2 years away or something?
As I said, the whole thing opens Q2 to 2022 on the north side. So that's for the first time we'll get to see it for reals. And presumably if one is driving over and they're doing it before, first quarter 2022, you'll see it go up.
Guys, I have 2 more reports to go for. Next one up is Curtis Young, our Public Safety Chair.
Thank you very much. I'll be very brief. Nothing to report this month. However, next month, April, I will be away. So my assistant chair is going to be taking the lead on the agenda creation and the whole process. I'll be away perhaps the first few weeks for family reasons. And that's all I have to say.
Is that pertaining to Curtis?
Yeah, 2 things. I just want to thank Curtis for working with me on the public safety issues around parks for May. And I just also wanted to give a shout out to both the 181st Street house and the Sherman Avenue house as well as the house up in the Bronx for their incredibly prompt response to a fire in my building on Saturday. You should know, as the public safety chair, that all of our fire personnel they're great. They were just great. If you ever have your building on fire, count yourself as lucky that you live in New York City, because the FDNY is great.
Yes, very much so. Thank you.
Okay. Maria Lee is gonna do the presentation on behalf of the Housing Committee.
Thanks, Eleazar. Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm putting up laundry at the same time, so please excuse me, but I hope you're all doing well. So earlier this month, we had a presentation from New York Presbyterian regarding kind of, on the human services side of things. So I know, Steve, you mentioned a little bit about how you felt that was more so in your purview. I think, it's definitely within the purview of both committees, because a lot of the questions that we were asking were regarding the accessibility and some of the inequities that we've all seen in the news. I know some of the executive committee members that are here on the call this evening were also on that. Really good questions, really making sure that those who in our community are getting access to the vaccine as they should be. I would agree with your observation, Steve, that the person representing New York Presbyterian wasn't super helpful with, her responses. We did ask questions. Some of the committee members did ask questions again regarding the data breakdown of who's getting the vaccines, and they were unable to provide that information. And then the second bit that we discussed in our committee meeting was regarding the ongoing discussion with the Department of Homeless Services regarding the oversight of the Fort Washington Avenue Armory. So there were some representatives from the Armory Foundation there. There was also a representative from Department of Homeless Services. There were a series of questions that were asked, amongst the committee members, and both DHS and the Armory Foundation answered. From the committee's perspective, DHS did not come prepared to answer any of the questions. And so there's a bit of frustration on the end of, the committee members. And so we'll be following up with that shortly. In terms of a forward look for April, we've reached out to HPD and we're looking to have them share a presentation on Housing Connect and how to use the housing lottery. A couple of months ago, they rolled out a new website. So we thought it would be a great opportunity to share with the community on how to use the new website, how to, apply for one of the, vacancies or apartments on there, and hopefully be ever so lucky if, those applications go in a void. But people apparently do get those apartments. So that's what we're looking forward to in the month of April. That's all from me on Housing and Human Services. Thank you.
Thank you, Marielle, for showing up in such a short notice. I know that you were not slated to be tonight, but I thank you. We thank you for being there and sacrificing your time. We're gonna have now Catherine. We're gonna.
I'd like to say something to Mario.
Go ahead, Steve. Steve, so.
Yeah, Mario, the same issues that you raised with the hospital are issues that my committee has been raising. And I think in the future, what we've done in the past is if another committee has an interest in a subject that my committee is dealing with, and since you meet the same night, we should do it as a joint meeting. You could participate in the portion of the meeting in which we're dealing with the hospital. I think it's very important that the hospital get one clear message from the board, that they not get confused between two different committees. And we're having enough difficulty as it is with the hospital right now, getting information out of them. And I think they should, I think it would be more effective for us if we could talk to them at the same time and not in different meetings where the potential exists for them getting a different message from one or another of the committees.
Thanks, Steve. Great suggestion and point well taken. I'll share that with Ariel.
Right, thank you.
Other questions to Marielle? No? Catherine, on the bylaws task force.
Yeah. So I mean, I've spoken at length with Ellie. On the bylaws, it's information throughout what I would say has been the pandemic. The board makeup in terms of the members that we have been fluctuating up and down. And I think similarly to what I think the task forces have been plagued with for years, and what Richard Allman was saying earlier is, and then I'm going to reiterate what I had said last month about assessing how we assign, how many committees folks are assigned to. I believe in quality, not quantity. And early last year when I was assigned to bylaws, I was clear, like, it's a lot. And we all know the amount of work and the work plan that we have to set forth with our bylaws task force. So, I'm hoping that more folks want to step up and join bylaws, that with new members that we can get the bylaws task force moving, because it's urgent. So that's what I'm going to say for now, because I think it involves a deeper conversation too.
Hopefully there's no a crime by saying that Liz was first on my screen here. Were you, or was
No,
it?
actually, Tanya.
I wasn't going to cry because I wasn't crying. I didn't wear I was crying. But Liz, if you want to go, that's kind of insulting. But Liz, you want to go first? You welcome to. I don't know if your hand was up first. I can go after.
I was just going to say that I know that I didn't. Tanya's been interested in this in the bylaws committee since, for a very long time. So not up to me to volunteer her, but I sure hope that she's still interested and that you put her on it, because she's got a lot to say about it and has done a lot of thinking and work on this already. And that's an incredible resource available to us.
Oh, okay, Liz. I didn't know you were going to say. Okay. Yeah, actually, thank you for that shout out. But yeah, I was going to say too. Yeah, I was actually going to say myself that for 2 years I've asked to lead the task force, bylaws task force. I've actually was working with people on trying to jumpstart that, and I was denied by both the current person and the last person who chairs the board. And so I'm not sure why we're saying we don't have people who are willing to work on it, or we're struggling, because I actually, was working on that and offered to chair it and could have moved that forward 2 years ago, even a year ago, because there was a lot of work already had been done in that area. And thank you to those who have been working on that and contributing to that effort. Much appreciated. So I'm just a little confused. I think that along with, as Catherine said, looking at, the kind of like weight of the, assignments on people, making sure that people are not carrying too heavy of a load. I think we also need to look at, the bias that we have in terms of people who we put in leadership and the ones, those we deny leadership, and some of these things. And so I think that's also a conversation that needs to be had, because we should not be hurting. I know we had a number of people who were working on this and interested. And so I'm not sure what happened there. But just wanted to also say that on the record that the work was happening. And I was actually kind of shocked when I saw that there was a bylaws task force. I had not even been spoken to about it. And I surely wasn't asked to chair it. And even though I had spoken about doing that, so I was a little bit surprised by that. My goal was to just move it forward, because I think, as Catherine said, it's very important. It's very crucial that those bylaws that's worked on and those things are updated, and that we make those bylaws reflect our current needs. So that's just my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Catherine, once again, I'm gonna have you talk about inclusion resolution on the resolve of the implicit bias training facilitated by external entities. Please give us a report on specifically the agency that you've been speaking to, Anna, and where we are with it. Thank you.
Oh, you talking? Okay. Yeah, nah. So what it is that, so the group is called Afro Resistance, that I reached out to back in February of last year, when I had proposed talking about surveys. And so back in, what was it, December 2019, that I had mentioned of doing annual surveys for members. And so being able to assess, right, what's our experience on the board, our experience in committees, being able, and I think kind of Richard had started at some point in terms of what our both, actually, no, he did it from the members, from the general members experience, but this was going to be specific to it. And so when I reached out to 4 different facilitators to be able to bring bids to Ebenezer and to Eliezer, was specific to the survey. It did include, or not even included, it was a jump start to talking about where are folks at on the board when it comes to not just all overall experiences. So it was a holistic survey design that Afro Resistance, which is a co-op led by Black women in the Bronx. Actually, one lives here in the Heights, if I remember correctly. And they've done a lot of work with the Department of Health, specifically around reproductive justice and transformation and institutional transformation. And so they were one group out of 4 that I had recommended to jumpstart that process of the survey. So I wouldn't mix it into like what is the inclusion resolution or what is really our work plan to improving our board. but addressing one component in terms of creating a baseline and assessing where are we as a community board. And so they're willing to present on who they are as a co-op, on the work that they've done. And then, of course, being able to move forward with that work, or if we would want them to also address the training if they want, if we decide them to be our facilitators. And then, of course, there are many more facilitators that we could reach out to. But I want to be clear that it was specific to the survey project and identifying where we are as a board so that we could just determine what the following steps would be.
Tanya has a question.
Yeah, I was still waiting to be looped in to this conversation about what's happening around the inclusion resolution. In the last meeting, mentioned as that I was supposed to be looped in. That I, of course, had written the resolution and had and as second vice, that I should be looped into what you all are doing around that. And I think it's very important. We could talk about, bringing in Black women to do something, but when you exclude a Black woman who's actually worked on this from the very beginning and facilitated all of this happening, I think that's sort of problematic. So I would just ask again, I'm still waiting for that email to include me in that conversation. Thank you.
Catherine?
Yeah, sure. This again, I'm gonna repeat, was last February, not now. But I'll forward that to you. They're still like on the standby, and yeah, and we definitely, yeah, I'll forward it to you.
Okay, guys. Unless anyone has anything else to say, I'm gonna call the meeting for adjournment.
Second.
Have a great night, guys.